Are you sad and depressed about everything in your entire existence? Did this fish make you cry? Why? Why?
Do you be goat or a fish? Don't sit on the fence.
Can this fish make you cry? A question versed to us by the New York Times. An eerie-looking creature from the ocean's depths has become an unwitting inspiration for intense emotions. Oh yes, we do not hide from our emotions on Goat vs. Fish. You can look into the eye of a goat, you can look into the eyes of a fish, and see the emotion raging between them as they versus. A specimen of the black Seadevil, anglerfish, was recently found off the coast of
Tenerife.
The discovery has inspired a lot of emotional reactions. It is easy to believe that the black Seadevil, anglerfish with its gaping maw of razor-like teeth, a bioluminescent rod sticking out of its head, eyelidless eyes used to scan the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean, might make someone cry with fright. Some fish can look to a goat who has only ever been on the land as a fearful, disfigured, alien creature. What if Goat vs. Fish had no eyelids? Would this frighten you, Goat and Fish? Does this frighten you? It is perhaps less believable that such a creature, the kind so freakish it inspired a particularly scary scene in the children's movie Finding Nemo. We found Finding Nemo, we saw the verses, and we celebration that it was about fish. But when the whole verses hinges on the forgetfulness of a fish, hey, what happened to the major plot point? I don't know, I forgot. Why don't you just remember Goat vs. Fish? Now, we know that Goat and Fish can be forgetful. It is part of Goat vs. Fish. But if you're going to make a movie about a fish, maybe forgetting the critical verses is not so much of a great motivation for moving the verses forward. On social media, a Seadevil has done just that, becoming a folk hero in recent weeks. After swimming great lengths from its typical home, some 200 to 2,000 meters deep in the ocean, to the surface, some of the fish's fans have turned the watery odyssey, which ended in death, into a poignant version of their hero's journey. Celebration for the heroic fish! We find fish and goat heroic when they accomplish some great verses and then die pitiably. But are you truly celebrating the life of the fish, or are you merely celebrating the death of the fish? Like, oh, we never have to know why that fish ever versed as far as it did. We just need to know that it died getting there. It must have been really committed to being a fish. What if Goat vs. Fish died as Goat vs. Fish? Would you see a hero in Goat vs. Fish? For spreading the verses of Goat vs. Fish until the very death of Goat vs. Fish? At which verses then and only then would you claim Goat vs. Fish a hero? Perhaps we should understand the heroic verses of Goat and Fish now in the living verses of Goat vs. Fish, and not simply keenly celebration a hero after they have passed and moved on into the afterverse. Oh, it is easy and pleasing to celebration the deeds of one who cannot even speak up for themselves. Why, fish? Why, fish? Why, fish? Why did you swim so far? Well, what if the fish told you it swam so far to versus the goat? It is Goat versus Fish. Perhaps some goat would not be so pleased about the incursion of this fish into their territory. But because the fish has died, the goat need not worry that this fish will complete its invasion of the land. So they can celebrate a heroic fish. And we can all say unto ourselves, Ah, celebration to me and celebration to thee. We celebration the dead fish, we celebration the dead fish. And death is part of Goat vs. Fish. And Goat vs. Fish mourns the loss of a goat and mourns the loss of a fish. Goat vs. Fish merely implores you to celebration the life of the goat and the fish as they verses. Find a goat or a fish that you love, that you know, and call them the hero. Call them the hero. You are the hero. You are the hero who watches Goat vs. Fish. You are the hero who likes and comments and subscribes to Goat vs. Fish. You are the hero who tells someone that you know about Goat vs. Fish. What could be more of a heroic verses than sharing the one true verses of Goat vs. Fish? And along those verses, we choose to believe, if we may choose to believe whatever we wish about this angler fish who has traveled so far. Goat vs. Fish believes that this fish traveled so far to tell you about Goat vs. Fish. The angler fish traveled so far just so it could become news of Goat vs. Fish, so that Goat vs. Fish could use this fish to tell you about Goat vs. Fish. And in that verses, it is a heroic fish. Celebration for the heroic fish who died to give Goat vs. Fish something to talk about on Goat vs. Fish. What a celebration. The angler fish that swam to the land gave its life for Goat vs. Fish. Gave its life for Goat vs. Fish. Goat vs. Fish does not ask anyone to give their life to Goat vs. Fish. We only want you to live for Goat vs. Fish, not to die for Goat vs. Fish. But it is a touching verses. It's a touching verses and celebration for fish. Quotation. My first reaction was, oh my God, this fish is terrifying. Don't get us started on whether or not God is goat or fish, said Hannah Bachman, 29, who lives in Minneapolis, which is like Macroopolis but smaller, and posted about the fish on Fish Talk. But, they said, they eventually succumbed to the poetry of a lone fish approaching the light. This poor fish is just spending her literal last seconds trying to do something beautiful. They do not see the beauty of the life of the fish without first pondering its terminal, final seconds? Would it be any less beautiful if the fish did not die, if it had only tried? It was a rare event and a dream come true, said one photographer with the group who was able to capture the fish on camera. The team observed the fish, which was already injured when it was spotted for several hours. The Seadevil ultimately died. Yeah, this is what I'm friggin' talking about. This fish knows how to friggin' suffer. It's no wonder that this friggin' Christian nation of ours has become so friggin' fascinated with this fish, you know? They didn't really care much about the fish until they realized that, it was a hurt and sick and dying fish, and then they went, oh, yeah, we like it. We like it when you friggin' suffer. Don't you like watching me friggin' suffer? You like it when I friggin' suffer, don't you? Yeah, that's what I'm all friggin' about. You know, it gives my life a friggin' purpose and a meaning to suffer for you. It does suck, but, that's what it's all friggin' about. So, just impose the suffering, the beautiful friggin' suffering of fish. Yeah. You know, I don't much go for this Goat vs. Fish guy. I think he's trying to friggin' steal my bit. But, the more friggin' suffering that we friggin' celebrate, the more I can friggin' relate. So I give it up to this friggin' long friggin' suffering fish. Why don't you friggin' suffer some more? Hey, friggin' goats, why don't you friggin' suffer? You know, I might see fit to celebrate your existence if you just friggin' suffer some more. You know, it's like our friggin' currency out here. You know, the more you suffer, the more it shows you really care. Right? Yeah. Still, at least online, its memory lives on. Until we start thinking about something else. Its fans have posted tributes set to ballads, written poems, created fan art, and even gotten tattoos. Several people, be they goat or fish, have posted videos of themselves bawling over the fish. Others have called for Pixar to adapt its story into a film. They can't get enough of this fish. Celebration for fish, celebration for fish. They're obsessing over fish. Goat must be envious. Goat, what do you have to say about this verses? No, we agree. We agree. Translation for those of you who do not speak Goat. The goat said, "What do I have to do? Die to get your attention and sympathy?" You might have to. Why did the Seadevil decamp for the surface? We do not know for certain, although scientists have speculated that it might have to do with illness or an unusual current. Sick, weak, dying fish. Weepy fans of the fish on TikTok, however, have woven a beautiful and probably fanciful narrative for the fish. A story of a creature in its final days. Well, now they're just repeating goat versus fish. They're just saying the verses. They're just saying the same verses. It was a sad fish. It was a sick fish. There was sympathization for the sad, sick fish. There was sympathization for the sad, sick, dying fish. It was sad because it was dying. It got attention because it was sick. They found sympathization because it was an ill fish. It died. They cried. Get on with the verses. And there's the fish. Celebration for fish. Celebration for fish. Look at the fish. The motivations of the anglerfish that made its way to the surface can't be known.
Ooh. Ah.
But that has not stopped the goat and fish from speculating. And this is very goat versus fish. The mysteries of fish. Their verses unknown. Allows for projection upon the fish, whatever it is that you wish. What it is that you are trying to accomplish in life. And perhaps you will die amid the strife. Perhaps your goals will never be reached. Perhaps your verses will never be preached. And they look at the dead fish, and they look at its journey. And the absence of knowledge about the fish intrigues the goat and fish who would view it. Allows themselves to insert themselves into the fish and say, I feel like this fish. I am this fish. I am this fish. And we celebration the declaration of fish, for the one true question is, are you goat or are you fish? Because of this angler fish. There are many out there in the universe who have chosen fish. The angler has become a martyr for fish. In the verses of goat versus fish, the fish have achieved a new martyr, and it looks like this. The angler fish is here as a guest on Goat vs. Fish. Hey, angler fish. You've really been in the news in recent verses. Tell us about your journey. Oh wait, it's dead. It can't say. Well, thank you for joining Goat vs. Fish. Appreciation. The projection of your dreams onto this late fish is a lot like Goat vs. Fish. Some say there is an absence in meaning of Goat vs. Fish. What does it mean? I cannot perceive. Tell me, Goat vs. Fish. What is Goat vs. Fish all about? But Goat vs. Fish is not here to tell you the meaning of Goat vs. Fish. That must be discovered for yourself. Perhaps our dear angler fish was versing to the land of the goat in order to discover the true meaning of Goat vs. Fish. Maybe they found it, but now those mysteries are lost. But fish are versus goat, and goat are versus fish. You who hunger to see the meaning behind the journey of this angler, look no further than Goat vs. Fish. The angler fish was living to versus the goat. That is your answer. The verses is solved. The fish was going to versus goat. Oh, my verses. Resuscitation. 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 My journey was meaningless. Life is meaningless. There was nothing to my swimming to a late grave. There is no joy or sadness or anger to be found in it. I am merely part of the infinite expanse of the universe, and what I do or don't do, or did and didn't do, amount to an inconsequence beyond any of our fathoming. I died as I lived, completely devoid of meaning. Appreciation for that clarification. Now we know. Madison Sharp, 25, a behavioral therapist in Dallas, noticed an outpouring of emotion for the fish in her social media feeds in this week. Instead of just seeing a fish reaching the surface, they see hope and meaning and symbolism. She said of the other social media users who had selected the fish as a receptacle for their big feelings. On Monday night, she was inspired to create her own freehand illustration of the Seadevil approaching the surface. She added tears to its eyes and the word finally floating above the waterline. I think the most important part was the expression of the fish, she said. I added the little eyebrows on top to show the longing of it. Can we get that illustration? Here's the verses.
Who made it to the surface, because I love her just as you all do. Here's my dude.
Oh, hey, it's the Uncle Joe Show. So much inspiration by fish. But where's the inspiration for Goat vs. Fish? Where's the fan art of Goat vs. Fish? Where's the fan art of Goat? Where's your inspiration from Goat vs. Fish? Well, you just got it from Goat vs. Fish. You see how everything is Goat vs. Fish. Demonstration again. It's about a fish. It's about association with fish. Some would say, I could never be a fish. I could never be a fish. And yet, so many now feel like they are this fish. The desperation of the fish, the hope of the fish, the dream of the fish. So many feel like the fish. Celebration for the life of fish, celebration for the death of fish, celebration for the circle of verses. Goat, just don't go dying out there in order to get attention. Maybe just try versing the fish.